They say it takes a village, and in horror, the village idiot plays a pivotal role. Somebody has to put on the clearly cursed mask, read aloud the ominous Latin they found in the basement, or plan to smuggle the deadliest creature in the universe back to Earth, where all that creature's favorite food is. But despite their idiocy, some of these dummies are impossible not to love, so come with me to explore 8 of the dumbest, most lovable idiots in the horror genre. Beware of spoilers ranging from minor to major for the following 7 films and 1 TV show. In a movie about a group of friends finding themselves transported into an 80s slasher film full of 80s slasher stereotypes, roughly half the cast of the final girls could qualify as idiots. But none of these idiots are as lovable as the loose one, Tina. Throughout the film, she is hilarious and quirky, and the best part of her character is, since the people from the real world are familiar with horror tropes and stereotypes, they have to take steps to keep her from doing loose things, which would attract the slasher villain, by taping mittens to her hands to keep her from taking off her clothes. When they decide they want to lure the killer, the gloves literally come off and they tell her to go maximum loose, so the killer comes running, which is the funniest scene in the film. Also, Tina's actor, Angela Trimber, who is a talented dancer, as evidenced in her scene in the movie, played Cleopatra in Epic Rap Battles of History, which is my personal favorite battle. Talking of stereotypes in horror, Marty from Cabin in the Woods is our next lovable idiot. The conceit of the film is that various classic stereotypes, the jock, the loose one, the virgin, the fool, are brought to a horror setting to please some gods because that's just what they're into. Our fool, mega stoner Marty, is comic relief in human form and definitely comes off as an idiot for the most part. But it turns out his massive marijuana habit actually renders certain control methods used in the cabin ineffective, meaning when everyone else gets led by pheromones and drugged up air, he's the only one wondering what's wrong with them. He's an idiot in the IQ department, but he comes into his own when it comes to intuition and street smarts. You know what Einstein said, if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, you're gonna think that's a pretty shit fish. Initially introduced from the perspective of sexy college kids on their way to one of their rich daddy's cabins, you'd be forgiven for thinking brothers Tucker and Dale are hillbilly psychos destined to do some wrong turn-style nonsense on these attractive youths. But you'd be wrong. They are just awkward, sweet, misunderstood, and yes, quite stupid. Through almost no fault on the brothers' part, the college kids get it in their heads that Tucker and Dale mean to do them a mischief, and, in panicked, misguided rescue attempts, end up accidentally putting themselves through wood chippers, impaling themselves on their own spears, and setting themselves on fire. All while the hapless Tucker and Dale try to convey that they aren't a threat. Poorly. You're on the brothers' side the whole time, and while they're not the sharpest light bulb stuck in the neck of a sexy youth, they are very lovable. At the very beginning of Abigail, Terrence, aka Peter, is told to his face that he is basically a dumb, blunt object to be pointed at problems. But that doesn't mean he doesn't have feelings. Yes, Peter isn't very bright, but he's one of those dumb giants with a heart of gold. He's kind in nearly every opportunity that he has to be so, and he's also quite protective of the youngest member of the crew, naive hacker Sammy. In fact, when Sammy is bitten by the titular Abigail and the remaining survivors are hesitant to team up with her, not being sure what a bite means in this situation, Peter doesn't hesitate to pair up. When Abigail does take over Sammy and calls out to Peter as a trap, he doesn't miss a beat and comes to her aid, ultimately dying for his kind heart and dumb brain. Be nice to the big dumb ones and you can get them to do whatever you want. Wait, that can't be the lesson. Ash Williams is possibly the dumbest idiot on this list because in addition to being a huge fool, he also has an incredibly high opinion of himself and his judgment.
I got it!
The thing is, while his judgment isn't great, it can't be argued that he isn't evidently the literal greatest at fighting Kandarian monstrosities. Also, unless there's a moment in the show I'm not remembering, it seems that he's the only person to have ever just shaken off a Deadite possession all on their own. I think that the reason we can see past all Ash's bad choices and questionable morality is a little bit of a fourth wall break. Bruce Campbell is impossible not to love in everything he's been. Speaking of massively stupid but surprisingly capable horror idiots, Jason Stackhouse from True Blood and Ash Williams may have been separated at birth. Terrible decisions, debatably much more dangerous and in higher quantity than Ash Williams, and also being a sucker for a pretty face or charismatic presentation makes him a powerhouse of stupid. But the thing is, when he actually has to go into action, he's wildly effective at killing bad vampires and goes to bat for the ones he loves. While he makes some bad choices and falls into some crowds which were basically hate groups, he himself never does anything unforgivable, and his idiot charm carries him just up to the line of being unlikable, but we can never quite write him off. Hoyt, on the other hand, fuck that whiny little idiot baby. It may be a little harsh to call Dewey from Scream an idiot, but I think we can all agree he perhaps isn't best suited for law enforcement. He startles easily, allows his buttons to be pushed to where he'll react poorly even easier, and he's immensely simple to manipulate if you're a pretty lady. Yet for some reason, you just can't find yourself writing him off for all his faults. His choices never actually cause anyone to get hurt or die. In fact, his gullibility for a pretty face saves Gail Weathers' life because he asks her to tag along with him when the news van is assaulted by Ghostface. He's nice and tries his hardest. In horror, that's all you can really ask for. Jessica Alba's Molly is the love interest of Manus command-compromised lead Anton in Idle Hands, and let me tell you, she is dumb. She believes everything told to her, no matter how improbable or completely contradicted by present evidence it may be. Early on, she even tells Anton that her parents probably wouldn't like a sweaty, bloody boy in her bedroom. Newsflash, Molly, you shouldn't like that either. But there is something about Molly that you just can't hate. She's the definition of good vibes only and has the presence that can brighten up any room. Perhaps it's because she's unburdened by the complicated thoughts most of us have to endure. Ignorance really is bliss. What you up to, Molly?
Just thinking!
Sure you are. And there you have it, 8 of the most lovable horror idiots that I can think of, but can you think of any horror idiots that should also be on this list? Let me know in the comments. If you'd like to support me and what I do, keep me renting movies and buying games, then check out patreon.com/horrorandcats, where you get exclusive Let's Plays, live streams, videos from a more personal standpoint, and all of my original horror stories go up there. Stick around the channel for more lists, Let's Plays, and really just some random stuff I like to do that's tangentially related to horror sometimes. But for the most part, it's horror.